whenever lack shows up in the relationship of our own life, really, that's where right then we got to say, I kicked you out. I'm done. Talking. We've had a Q&A, and then Dr. Peter and myself, talked about some of the key things about living a prosperous life, which goes way beyond financial means, and the abundance of the universe and all of that. And so one of the things that I thought would be really great to end this month on is a few things, perhaps, that it is good to remember. So we're going to talk about some things to remember. And if I don't cover something, maybe I'll let you tell me something to remember. So yeah, in order to live this abundant life, as I was talking about in the Science of Mind class this morning, it takes diligence, it takes doggedness, it takes consistency and persistency to ensure that our thoughts are becoming the things that we want them to be, and not maybe some of the things we don't want them to be. And so one of the things to remember is that it begins and ends and is through this whole thing that it rests in the state of our own mind. It's in the state of our mind. Now, it doesn't rest in your mind for me, and it doesn't rest in my mind for you. We each have to have our own state of mind. And Ernest Holmes talks about this. This is one of my key phrases as it relates to prosperity. He first starts and talks about the word poverty. He says the word poverty usually conveys to our mind the idea of a money shortage. Yes? Like poverty. There's a lack of money shortage. But actually the word means, he says, the lack of any good thing. Poverty, the lack of any good thing. So poverty is the very antithesis of abundance, and abundance of good is necessary to human happiness. So abundance is necessary for our own happiness. So it is okay and good to want abundance. He says that it is only as we experience the good that God or Spirit is expressed through us. It is only as we experience good that Spirit is expressed to us. Okay, that has a whole different meaning. So, only as it is expressed, this good through us, is Spirit even experienced. And the more completely we realize good in all its manifold expressions of health, of wealth, of happiness, of love, of peace, all of that good stuff, right? The more completely we actually express Spirit. The more that we actually express God right here and right now. So that is, the more that Spirit becomes personified as us. So when we move into this place known as abundance, that is where Spirit shows up. That is where Spirit expresses. That is where Spirit basically comes to life in the form of the matter of each of us. And so it is good that we allow this to flow in and through our lives as much as possible through our state of our own mind. He continues to say that both prosperity and poverty are states of mind. If we desire to erase the thought of poverty, we must go back to the thought of prosperity, an affirmation of the allness of good, the source of which is spirit. So we are confronted with the revealing truth that poverty is a lack of knowledge of spirit. So when there is not the good in our life, it's actually a lack of knowledge within our own state of minds of just what this life is, how spirit works, how everything is connected, etc., etc., etc. And if we had a complete realization of the allness of the good, the allness of all good is right here, right now, present in this moment for each of us and as each of us right here in this moment. And that we absolutely have this realization not only of the allness of this all good, but our oneness with this all good, our oneness with spirit. We can't move out of it. We can't step away from it. We can't, get out of the water of the divine oceanic substance of it. When we realize this, then we would automatically express abundance, he says. So if there is some sense of lack of good things, quote, poverty, at whatever level in each of our own lives, there may be a lack of love or friendships or connection or work or whatever it is. It's residing in our own state of our own minds. And the great news is we can change that. And we can change that now. And we can change that. No one else has to actually get us out of this state but ourselves. And that is the good news. And that maybe is the not so good news. I like to be reminded that it resides in my own mind, in my own state of my own mind. Now, one of the things that I like to remember, and I talk about it a lot, is the next thing is we absolutely need to let go of lack. Can we just drop lack? Can we just, if you've been in a long-term relationship with lack, could you just break up? Could you just kick lack out of your house? Could you just divorce lack and say, I am so done. This ain't working no more. Over. Whenever lack shows up in the relationship of our own life, really, that's where right then we got to say, I kicked you out. I'm done. Any thought of lack of anything, we must let go of. It is so important. I constantly, in the state of my own mind, work to move from limited to limitless. That is a whole spectrum. But the more that I'm aware of when a thought of lack or a sense of lack or a suggestion that there's lack of anything, I must move towards the limitlessness of life itself. So I've got to let go of lack. And sometimes that comes up more in certain areas of our life. I know that sometimes it comes up a lot with this financial stuff, like, well, I don't have enough. I only make. Oh, well, get rid of that word too. Let go of only. But break up with lack. It is not a good relationship. Just here to tell you. And Ernest Holmes talks about this. And the reason being is that it is certain that you cannot believe in abundance while identifying yourself with lack. It is impossible. So, if you want a life of abundance and you're still identifying with lack, no go. So, every time that you can, be diligent on forgetting about lack and think only of abundance. There's this thing in the many of the religious traditions. Have you ever heard of fasting? Yes. Has anybody ever fasted? Look around. See, many of us have fasted. And what typically are we doing when we're fasting? Getting hungry. We are getting hungry. Yes, we are. Anybody fasting this morning? You're about to get hangry, aren't you? Some people fast for a month, right? Right?
So do you know you're part of our online community? Every time you watch us, you belong to CSL Dallas, and we're so happy that you're part of our community. And we love providing you this kind of spiritual message. So if you want to keep seeing this, please donate. You can donate at csldallas.org/give, or you can text 972-954-4404. Be part of our community and sit back and enjoy the message.
So, yeah, this whole idea of fasting. So, Ernest Holmes, I love it. He gives a whole new perspective on fasting. Fasting is actually a great thing. He shares that perhaps true fasting is a determination to no longer entertain negative thoughts. Fast from them. Don't eat them. Don't put them in your mouth. Don't digest them, heaven forbid, right? Perhaps it means continually to be affirming the good. We've got to fast from these negative thoughts. We've got to fast from this sense of lack. We've got to not feed it to our brains, our consciousness, and accept it and digest it. So the act of physical fasting is merely a symbol of this inward grace, he says. The need for the symbol disappears when you understand its meaning. So the good news is you don't have to fast from food. You can be continually fed good food. But we must fast from negative thinking and a sense of lack when it comes up in any area or aspect of our life. And so he says it's a good practice to fast so far as the negative is concerned, and feast on affirmations only. Feast on affirmations only. There's someone in our community that we were talking a couple of days ago, and he hasn't been in the community long, but one of the spiritual tools that he has learned is affirmations. And boy, has he been putting them to work in his life. He's been affirming that he sleeps well every single night because he'd been experiencing insomnia. He's not experiencing that anymore. He actually now knows the power of affirmations so much that he has a whole list of them, like a long list. And then every morning and every night, he chooses a few. And he says those affirmations over and over and over and over and over again. I've been doing a couple for the past 48 hours. It works. But I must feast my consciousness on that which I want. And so we can feast on affirmations of abundance, feast on affirmations of prosperity, feast on that over and over. This doesn't stop, folks. We have to keep doing it. If you can figure out how to stop and then just get everything that you want without consciously focusing on what you want, let me know. We're going to make billions. Please tithe to CSL Dallas when you do. We're to feast on this. So one of the things I'd like for you to start focusing on, because we can as a human race, I think we are somewhat better at pointing out the negatives sometimes than the good. So right now, I'm planting a seed that your conscious brain is aware when there is a thought, a suggestion, words coming out of your mouth or whatever that represent this thing called lack. And you're going to take notice and go, and you're going to replace it. You're going to redirect it with what? abundance, something good, something more, right? Yeah. Let go of lack. All right, something else that I want you to remember. Don't worry about the ebb. In life itself, the way it works, this universal presence, the divine oceanic substance, whatever we choose to call it, Spirit, God, the universal presence, there is an ebb and flow to it. Everything that we teach in metaphysics is pretty much paradoxical. We can see that in the physical form, everything is changing, right? Yes. And yet, everything is changed less. But there is this ebb and flow of life itself, if we watch it. Right here on planet Earth, there's an ebb and flow, right? We can look at the seasons. There's an ebb and flow to the seasons. We can look at life coming in and life going out. It's just form, changing form. But it never dies. It's just changing its form. All right? We can look at how snow comes onto the mountaintops and then, it melts and then it goes on into the streams. There's just this ebb and flow of life. One of the things that I love to pull out in this, in my mind, and how I keep myself in abundance rather than that L word that, we're going to focus on, lack, is to think of the tides of the oceans. They come in and they go out. That's the ebb and flow. Okay? So when I focus on that, if in something in my life, a particular place in my life, an area of my life ebbs and flows, I don't worry about it. Have you ever noticed your bank account ebbs and flows? Anybody here not have a bank account that doesn't ebb and flow? Is it just flow? Anybody? Oh, good, you're not a hoarder. Because if it was just flow, you're not spending it, right? It's just there. Anybody just experience all ebb? No? Okay. So you're at least getting some flow. And there's this ebb and flow of our bank accounts. One account, however many accounts we have, right? All of this coming and going. What happens inside of your own self and in your own mind when it feels like all it's doing is ebbing? Anybody? Worry. Fear. Anxiety. And then where does the attention go? That, right? I don't have enough. Oh, I'm lacking. See? Where does our focus go? Great. And then we get all of that embodied within our own selves, and we're focused on there's not enough. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to pay those thoughts. I'm not going to be able to pay the rent or the mortgage, or I don't have enough for gas, or I'm supposed to pay this person this much on this date. You feel it? Do you feel it in your body? It's like there's all this, and yet life itself ebbs and flows. And if we can remember that, then when the ebb feels like it's going out a little bit too much, think of the tide. Oh, the tide must come back in. It must be high tide. It just ebbs and flows. Then I'm no longer focusing on that which I don't have, that which I fear, that which I think I lack. So that's not going to grow. Because if I keep focusing on I ain't got it, so within, so without, that's how this works. Then the universe just gives me what I want. Yeah, you don't got it. You're right. If I let that go and not focus on that and just relax and say, there is an ebb and flow to life at all times. And in this moment, it is flowing to me right here and right now. Now, we must do our part also. And as the flow keeps coming in, we also want to make sure, right, we ebb it back out. Don't want to hold on to it too much. So that is how life works. And when we're in, and nature tells us most of how life works, especially if we love nature, we can look to it. And it's just there. The trees don't start panicking and worrying in the next few weeks because they've lost all their leaves. Can you imagine the tree for the next 4 months just going, when is it coming back? Where are my leaves? They're just there going, yep, lost my leaves. I know they're coming back in though. Do you know that on the live oaks, they don't let their leaves go until the new one pushes that one out? It's just like, boop. One could have a mental equivalent, meaning something that equals that of a live oak tree. So I don't ever feel a gap. How about that as a mental equivalent? I am a live oak tree that as stuff is coming in, I'm just, it's just this constant, there's no big gap. There's none of these months of, quote, seemingly no leaves on trees. But regardless, I know it must come back in. So I'm not going to be concerned about it. And because I'm not concerned about it and I'm focused on now the flow comes. Make sense? Yeah. And the other one is, I must believe that I'm in a universe which is self-sustaining. So that, as I know and recognize that I am in a universe that is self-sustaining, that's the ebb and flow. It is constantly self-sustaining itself. And I am part of this one life, universal presence, so that must be me too. So I am fully self-sustained. That's a great affirmation. I am fully self-sustained at all times, in all ways, in all shapes, in all fashions. You can't just say that once. Got to say it enough until it's embodied. So don't worry about the ebb. It's going to take care of itself. And then the other one that I want to share with you is to have this intense, good, grand expectancy of good. Do you expect your good? Like, do you expect it? Do you expect me or Petra to show up here at 10:30 every Sunday? Yeah. I mean, you just go, what's up? If no one was here when you arrived at 10:30 on a Sunday, you expect it. You expect the sun to come up in the morning, whether you see it or not? Yeah. Some of you don't, but that's okay. Expectancy. Very important to have the expectancy and the degree that we have that expectancy. Ernest Holmes really talks about this really well. He says that we can make bigger buckets. That's good news. We can make bigger buckets. You can make as big a buckets as you want. The thing is that we can't make a bigger law. This universal law that we talk about. So we can't make a bigger law. But the great news is that the law does not know big or small. So it just doesn't matter to the law, this universal, impersonal thing that it's the creative medium. If all of this is going, what the heck is Karen talking about? Then get in foundations, okay? And foundations class. But this universal law doesn't know big or small. So it knows what to do when I place whatever it is, this thought that I want. It knows how to do that. He says there is such a law, and we are always using it. Whether you know how this stuff works or not, you are using it. That's the good news. And perhaps the not good news. So you're always using it. We are all receiving from life an objective equivalent of our inward mental attitude. So whatever my inward attitude is, that's what I'm getting. If there's something that's on the outside of your life that you're not liking, check your attitude, your mental attitude. If we wish more, we must increase our expectancy, he says. We must increase what it is that we're expecting. We must identify ourselves with more. So, I must increase my expectancy of more love. I must increase my expectancy of more money. I must increase my expectancy of more health. If I don't increase that expectancy, I'm not going to have more health. The law, being absolute, can produce what we call a big thing as easily as what we term a small thing. I say this all the time. When we're talking about money specifically, the only difference between $25 and $250,000 is 4 nothings. Bunch of zeros, bunch of nothing. But see, we think $25 is what? Small? Maybe you think it's big. Or we think $250,000 is what? Big, huge, right? The law just can easily do 25 as 250,000, right? But what do I expect? If I only expect the 25, that's what I'm going to get. So we must grow our expectancy. For the one mind is a mirror. It automatically reflects the image of our thoughts, be they good, bad, or indifferent, he says, large, medium, or small, as we measure things. Those are some things that I like to remember, that all of this is my responsibility. It's not anyone else's. My own state of mind. Isn't that great? I get to control my own state of my own mind. I'm the one that can turn my attention away from any thoughts of lack and turn my attention to thoughts of abundance and prosperity and the things that I want. Sometimes I feel like I do that well. Sometimes I don't. And guess what I get? Precisely that, right? I have certainly, over studying the science of mind now for 12 years, I have increased my expectancy. And the great news is because I increase the expectancy for me personally, I increase my expectancy for you as well. My expectancy for the good of your life has dramatically increased. And so I'm going to end with something. I'm teaching spiritual economics right now, and this is a incredible book, by the way, by Eric Butterworth, one of my top 3 books on prosperity. And he talks about how if you want another reason to live a very prosperous life, an abundant life, he gives us another reason. And I think this is probably one of the best reasons for us to do this. He says, just one person who changes his or her thoughts, becoming alive with the idea of the all-sufficiency of God's substance, and staking his or her claim for prosperity and success in the world, not only begins to experience abundance in his or her own life, but also becomes a powerful influence for prosperity in the world. So as you do this, you become a powerful influence of prosperity in the world. He continues, the solution to some of our problems right now is a collective consciousness of the ever-presence of this God, this spirit substance, this divine oceanic substance. As we as a community increase our collective consciousness of this divine oceanic substance, and we know what it is, when we think of abundance, we begin to experience the free flow of abundance in our own lives. And again, we then become vital to the prosperity for all. You want to help eliminate poverty in this world? Be prosperous. Be an example. And finally, he says, become a part of a new worldwide epidemic of faith. I want each of us to become a part of this worldwide epidemic of I believe, therefore I see it, right? In the conviction that there is no need for poverty or lack anywhere. Believe that you are always in the presence of limitless substance which you form and shape and release through your faith. Keep the high watch of truth by knowing that wherever you are or whatever you experience, you, each of us, is an inlet and an outlet for the flow of this divine oceanic substance. And it's not simply spendable money, but that which gives value to everything you have, everything you do, everything you are. It's ideas, it's creativity, it's guidance, it's health, it's vitality. We are meant to live a prosperous life, and it is ours to claim and to experience, and it starts right here in the state of our own mind. And it starts right here in the state of our own community. And so I'm going to pray us up, and then we're going to move into, this is the one and only Sunday where we actually invite us as a community collectively to make a pledge to this community, to take a stand for the prosperity in our own life and in our own in this community, because although maybe the numbers of this community haven't necessarily increased over the past few years, the prosperity, the financial givingness, which means the prosperity of the inflow of people's lives, has dramatically, almost doubled its increase, which proves that all of this does actually work. And so let's just go within. Let's go within to that limitless divine oceanic substance that is omnipresent, which means it is present every single place, at every single moment, simultaneously in this entire cosmos. It is omniscient. It is omnipotent. It is the all-knowing, the all-powerful, the presence of life itself. And all of it is not only present here, but it resides in each one of us. Our entire makeup, way beyond the DNA of our physical body, but the DNA of our spiritual body, there is nothing outside of this. This is who we are. We are this divine oceanic substance. We live in this limitless medium. And it begins and starts with us. And so as I know that I am that I am, and I know that each of every single person in the sound of my voice is that too, I open up to this limitless God substance. And by the power and authority of the one mind, the Christ consciousness, that which is, I declare and claim that any sense of lack is dropped, is released, is erased, and it is replaced with the truth of our own being, that we came here to live this life as a prosperous life, as an abundant life. And as we remember this over and over and over again, our lives transform, our lives change. It shape-shifts into a prosperous life, and we become that living, breathing example of what this prosperous life is about, that there is no lack, that there is no poverty, and we make that shift within us. We become the change that we wish to see, and because we are the change, it's multiplied. Then everyone in our family has got it down, and then it ripples out into our workplace, into our communities, into our schools. Everywhere that we travel, when we go to a third country, we say, this is a prosperous life. We bring in prosperity through our own consciousness, and we create a world that works for all, for the sake of our own lives, for our children's lives, for our grandchildren's life, and so on. And it all begins right here, right now, within each of us. A new seed, a new day is planted. And so I release these words into the universal law. It's a law that knows how. Thank God, I don't need to know how. I just have full faith and trust and believe that this is so. Therefore, I let it loose unto it with great and abiding expectancy. I know it cannot return to each of us void. I call this good. I call it so, and so it is.